Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Productions channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. Today I am finally getting around to reviewing The Age of the Offended, the brand new 6th album from Norway's death metal legends Cadaver, released on July 21st via Nuclear Blast. So, without further ado, let's begin. Now, before I get into giving my thoughts on The Age of the Offended, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track list rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs that are on this album, how many tracks that are on this album, and what is the time length for this album. Since this album consists a total of 13 tracks, it clocks in at the length of 42 minutes and 36 seconds. So, these 13 tracks are, of course, beginning with, which is the 1 minute and 23 second intro titled Sycophant Swing, then into the first real song of the album, that being Post-Apocalyptic Grinding, then into Scum of the Earth, the title track, Death Revealed, The Shrink, Crawl of the Cadaver, The Drowning Man, The Sicker, The Better, Dissolving Chaos, Deadly Metal, The Craving, and then finally ending with Freezing Isolation. So there you go, folks. There's your 13 tracks. To get you guys into this mood and spirit of The Age of the Offended, I gotta offend you guys with really obnoxious sounds that's going to rape your ears. Oh. I am never gonna get tired of these portions for these reviews. Okay, one more time. All right. I got that out of my system. Maybe not that. Cadaver returned in 2020 with probably their most punishing album to date with Eder and Bile. And 3 years later, they returned again with The Age of the Offended. Eder and Bile was like a grimy, grotesque ghoul bashing your head in with a mallet at full force without no recovery. Whereas here with The Age of the Offended, they opted to pace things at a more, I guess, sophisticated level. So instead of the grime and slime assault of old, it's going for a more slightly technical and melodic structures. So basically think more of between recent period Carcass and later period Grave, if that's close enough. It's cool to hear Cadaver taking their stab at the more apt writing style of later Carcass. The songs that, to me, best captures this are with the title track, The Sicker the Better, The Craving, and of course, Freezing Isolation. These obtain those classic traits that you find in prime Cadaver, but fused with the fleshed out paced melodic leanings of later Carcass that I find to be quite tasteful. I mean, this is definitely still Cadaver. However, again, this is just them going for more something similar to, again, the more later periods of Carcass that began with Heartwork. But of course, you've got quite a bit of songs that sees Cadaver taking a stab at the stylist's writings of Carcass. To me, these are captured here with the songs like The Shrink, Crawl of the Cadaver, which at times gives me obituary vibes. The very gloomy doom of The Drowning Man, and then Dissolving Chaos. It's just different hearing Carcass play around with more melodic and technical structures than before. I mean, they played around with black metal for a bit there, under the Cadaver Inc. Name, but never I have really heard them kind of take on something that's similar to the sort of, I guess people would consider melodic death metal, but this is not melodic death metal. But it just has those technical sort of things that I would kind of associate with Carcass for me. One factor I should point out here is that Cadaver had chose to collaborate with TNT's Ronnie Lee Tekro, hope I pronounced his name correctly, for a punishing rendition of TNT's classic track Deadly Metal, taken from TNT's classic second album Knights of the New Thunder. It's quite cool, to be honest with you, combining classic traditional metal with bludgeoning death metal, which is not too far off with what the likes of Carcass have done. You know, the way what they came out with, beginning with Heartwork, where they were kind of infusing in basically what would become a melodic death metal, but it was basically the idea of mixing in traditional forms of heavy metal with, of course, death metal to create, well, melodic death metal. But Cadaver here, of course, again, it's not really that close, but that was kind of the idea. But I don't want to try and completely pigeonhole a band into something that I know that they probably weren't trying to go for, you know. But again, just giving their spin on something like that. But again, it's really cool hearing them actually cover a straight up classic traditional metal song. Of course, again, punishing in a way that at times is kind of thrashy at times too. It's a really cool thing to hear from them. So that's I'll probably end it right there. But again, it is just really cool. And it was something I ended up finding out afterwards, because the Metal Archives, which I got it up right now, they're not even listing this as a cover, which I think is actually a crime, because it is actually a really good track to begin with from TNT, and definitely one of TNT's more metal periods, and definitely one of their best albums. So screw you, Metal Archives. Change it. Alright, so all in all, this is a very good album, albeit one that is taking some time for me to fully wrap my head around, and as compared to Eder and Bile, which assaulted me at first listen. However, that's not to take away anything from this album. Cadaver are showing how creatively broadened they are, which is the main thing one should take away from hearing this album. Or just sit there feeling like a murdered comatose victim. Which is probably the more appropriate reaction for this, okay? Let's just put it there. But again, I'm beginning to appreciate this album. So, there you go, folks. There's my thoughts on Cadaver's 6th classic studio album. I know, I just said classic there. It probably is going to be a future classic. Again, The Age of the Offended. And so, what is my rating? Well, I guess any classic album deserves this kind of rating. It is a 9.15 out of 10. Again, it's a really good album to begin with. And again, it's taking some time for me to really appreciate. And I don't want to come off across, as like I'm not appreciating the album. It's just that it's just taking me some time to really kind of get used to what they're really coming up with. But again, I'm going to adapt to this album just like probably anyone else. And, or everyone else is probably the better word to use. So again, it's a great album. So, this album, of course, has been out since July 21st. For those who are probably familiar with Cadaver and have probably been following Cadaver, if you have any thoughts, especially after listening to this album, if they are positive or negative, you can leave them in the comment section below. But, if you have not yet been able to check out The Age of the Offended, hopefully you're not one of those that are offended. Hopefully if you're not offended just by the title that is offended, whatever, If you haven't, go check it out. If you dig, of course, just classic sort of death metal, I can't see you not liking this album, so hopefully you end up liking it. And I'll do my best. You know what? You can find it on Amazon, you can find it anywhere, eBay, whatever. You can go probably to your local record store if they've got a copy in. So, I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Harry Thrashhead saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.